We kind of thought it would be interesting to tell you how the idea of the book started. So we went into a middle school classroom and they were reading Tangerine. And the lesson for the day was to talk about Tangerine and answer questions that came in this packet. And so listening to the students during the lesson, it became very clear that there was a lack of engagement and not really a clear purpose for what they were doing with the text. And so it really started Midge and I thinking, you know, these Common Core standards are coming out. How are we going to make sure, how are we going to help teachers to make these shifts in their instruction?
Right. I think oftentimes teachers, we also have all of the new teacher evaluation demands coming on board at the same time. So many teachers felt like they had to be standing up in front of the classroom talking, and that equated teaching. And Val and I had a chance to listen to students, and they were not engaged, and the teacher was talking. The teacher was very enthusiastic, but the students were not engaged. So that, again, got us thinking, how do we help teachers move to a more student-centered classroom?
So we kind of hooked onto this idea of, you know, core standards, but what about students at the core of what we do? And so we started thinking about more traditional teacher-directed lessons, and how do we shift it so that students are at the center of our instruction? And what does that mean with the new standards and the new evaluation systems?
It was really the birth of our book, and you'll see that as you read it. The framework is such that we have a more traditional teacher-directed lesson, and then we do some unpacking of that and move into a more student-centered lesson.
So obviously you're going to see our framework in the book, but I mean, really looking at students at the core as far as voice, engagement, choice, and knowledge production. So we're really trying to look at those traditional lessons from that lens. And what we discovered is many of the traditional lessons had elements from the framework. They had some choice. They had some really good engagement. And many of the teachers that worked with us in the book were brave enough and took the risk enough to have us come in and watch their classroom lessons for these Common Core lessons and be okay with, like, okay, well, this was a great lesson, but how would we go even further if we were really to put students at the center? So we really appreciate the teachers that contributed to the book and allowed us to come into their classrooms and write about the lessons.